The 2016 U.S. presidential candidates should focus on protecting the rights of animals in our nation,
as well as informing the citizens of the horrors these overlooked victims experience every day. There are about 6,000 documented cases of dog abuse that occur every year.
56% of dogs and 71% of cats that enter animal shelters are euthanized. More cats are euthanized than dogs because they are more likely to enter a shelter without any owner identification.
Over 100 million animals are burned, crippled, poisoned, and abused in U.S. labs every year.
Farm animals are often given so little space that they can't even turn around or lie down comfortably. Egg-laying hens are kept in small cages, chickens and pigs are kept in jam-packed sheds, and cows are kept on crowded, filthy feedlots.
Many people may know the federal government is a government of limited powers. It is the states that have the power to basically regulate and protect the general public and the general health. So when the federal government wants to enact a law, they have to find a particularly enumerated power. And in this particular instance, there's basically two powers under which they could regulate animals. One is, of course, their treaty power. So the Endangered Species Act, for example, might be an act that is enacted under the treaty power. But more commonly, it's the Commerce Clause power. So there are about a handful of federal laws, particularly the Animal Welfare Act, the Endangered Species Act, as I mentioned, and the Captive Wildlife Safety Act, which presumably have some effect in this context, but they only regulate the transport of animals over state lines.
Although there are laws in place that protect these animals, they are not serving a purpose. The government needs to be more diligent when enforcing these laws.
Even animals that are protected under the Animal Welfare Act, also known as AWA, can be abused and tortured, and the law doesn't require the use of valid alternatives to animals, even if they are available.
So the exact definition of the Animal Welfare Act says that it regulates the care and treatment of warm-blooded animals, except those such as farm animals that are used for fiber, food, and other agricultural purposes. So basically, the Animal Welfare Act doesn't protect farm animals and cold-blooded animals, and the animals that are included in the AWA have limited protection. Animals withstand pain and suffering in ways that are unimaginable to most humans. We cannot turn a blind eye and act as if this is not an injustice to these animals. In the cosmetics industry, animals that are most frequently tested on in labs, such as mice, rats, birds, reptiles, and amphibians, are exempt from the minimal protections under the Animal Welfare Act. According to the Humane Society, registration of a single pesticide requires more than 50 experiments and the use of as many as 12,000 animals. In basic terms, a single product must be tested 50 times on about 12,000 animals. Even with these experiments, there is no guarantee that this product will be safe for humans.
In March 2006, 6 human volunteers were injected with TGN-1412, an experimental therapy created by Tejanero. TGN-1412 was tested on mice, rabbits, rats, and monkeys with no ill effects. Within minutes, the human test subjects were writhing on the floor in agony. The compound was designed to dampen the immune response, but had supercharged theirs, unleashing a cascade of chemicals that sent all 6 to the hospital. Several of the men suffered permanent organ damage, and one man's head swelled up so horribly that British tabloids referred to the case as the Elephant Man trial.
Several cosmetic tests commonly performed on mice, rats, rabbits, and guinea pigs include skin and eye irritation tests where chemicals are rubbed on shaved skin or dripped into the eye without any pain relief. The cosmetics industry is only one of the many industries that commit animal cruelty. Animal shelters are guilty of this horrible injustice as well. To put that in perspective, 31% of dogs and 41% of cats entering shelters are euthanized. These shelters claim their reason for euthanizing animals is because of illness and aggression. However, undercover investigations have revealed that the true reason behind euthanizing is overpopulation and the unlikeliness of that animal's adoption. The conditions in many of these shelters are horrid. These poor beings live in their own filth and suffer from the injuries dealt by workers and other animals.
A factory farm is a large industrial operation that raises large numbers of animals for food. Over 99% of farm animals in the U.S. are raised in factory farms, which focus on profit and efficiency at the expense of animal welfare. In simpler terms, factory farms care more about making money than the health and well-being of the animals on the farms. An example of the farming industry's cruelty is their process of forced molting. Molting is the falling out process of feathers to make way for new growth. Egg-laying hens are sometimes starved up to 14 days, exposed to changing light patterns and given no water in order to shock their bodies into molting. It's common for 5 to 10% of hens to die during this forced molting process.
Factory farms pack animals into spaces so tight they can barely move. Many have no access to outdoors, spending their lives on open warehouse floors or housed in cages or pens. Without room to engage in natural behaviors, confined animals experience severe physical and mental distress.
Believe it or not, animal abuse is much closer than you think. It's happening in the homes around you. The most common form of abuse for dogs is either abuse or neglect. There are about 6,000 documented cases of dog abuse that occur every year, but those are only the ones reported. There are thousands of cases that go unnoticed. Did you know leaving a dog outside on a hot day, or especially within the confines of a car, can cause brain damage to the animal in as little as 15 minutes? And continuous chaining of a dog has become illegal in some U.S. states because owners would never let their animals off the chain during their entire lives.
Here is a personal narrative about domestic animal abuse by our very own Miss Lauren Russell.
Okay, so across the street from me, in my apartment, there are these two puppies. Like, when I say puppies, I mean grown dogs. And they're yellow labs, and they were beautiful, and they were super sweet. But my terrible neighbors across the street had them chained up. Well, one of them was chained up, and the other one was allowed to roam around the backyard. Mind you, they had a fence. And yet this poor other dog just had to be on, like, I'm not kidding, a 2-foot chain. It drove me absolutely insane. And it would sit there, and it would whine and whine and whine and whine all day, every day, day and night, 24 hours a day. This poor dog would whine. And so, of course, knowing me, because I love animals, I would go outside and be like, oh, hey, buddy. And then he might growl. But beside the point, poor guy just needed all the love and attention that he could get, and he wasn't getting any because my neighbors sucked. So anyways, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to call animal control. So I went ahead, called animal control, and a couple days later, I had the dog in the background whining because I sat out on my porch while I called them and left them a message because they never answer their phone. And they called me back, and they're like, oh, that was a Labrador? And I was like, yeah, it was a lab. And he's chained up on a 2-foot chain, so come and take him away because he needs a better life than this. So anyways, a couple days later, they went, and the dogs were gone. So animal control had taken them away. Great. I don't know what happened to the dogs, but they were taken away.
Although animal abuse may not directly affect you, it affects the animals involved. These voiceless victims go through unbearable stress and pain.
Even their short time on Earth is miserable. We are asking you to stand up for these helpless victims. It is not their job to fight. It is ours.
To leave on a happy note, here are some videos of what happy animals actually look like.